Alright everyone, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video, we'll be looking at the second round series for the Stars and the Kraken, overall preview, and then looking at some best bets for this series as well. I gotta say, I did not obviously think Seattle was gonna make it past Colorado, and I don't think a lot of people did at the first place.
I don't think anyone did. I think I'm wondering kind of now, thinking like, I know the Bruins upset was huge, but I think the same amount of people are probably just as surprised that Colorado's out. I know they're not the same team, but everyone wrote the Kraken off. They're an expansion team. They're no good, and it is shocking. Like, this whole playoff's been wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Like seeing the former Stanley Cup champs. I think I saw it was the first team in NHL history to make their playoff debut and knock off the Stanley Cup champs from the year before, or whatever. So, but obviously easier for the Kraken to do it considering they just joined the league. But man, they played some good hockey. Like, we've talked about it around the office. Like, the Kraken outplayed them in a lot of these games. I think there's maybe two of the games that Colorado won in like dominant fashion by a couple of goals where you say like, oh yeah, for sure, you know, this team or Colorado is dominating this team and should be dominating this team. But Grubauer played well. Seattle created a weird amount of offense. And then you have that Dallas series, which was like a little bit different in the sense of, or how Dallas is coming into this one, not creating a ton of offense in terms of like scoring chances, expected goals for, but second in expected goals against, and then obviously you have Jake Oettinger back there. But one thing I did notice, which was interesting, Oettinger posted a high danger save percentage of .750 in that first round, which was second worst out of the goalies in the first round of the playoffs. So
really, and
the Kraken created a decent amount of high danger chances against Colorado. Now, granted, Dallas, I would say, structurally a little bit better defensively. I think it's probably just more of a point of emphasis because they have some really good skaters back on the defensive end. But what do you think of that? Like, do you think this Kraken offense is going to maybe shine more than people thought in this game or in this series compared to Colorado?
I don't know. It's tough to say. Like, I think the issue or the reason the Kraken beat Colorado is because they have all four lines just buzzing, going straight at them. Like, a lot of people were saying outside of the series that it was probably one of the fastest series that we watched so far, like just in terms of the pace and the intensity, because they were just gunning at them. I don't know if they'll be able to break through as much. Like, it's going to be interesting to see because their leading point scorer right now is Yanni Gourde with 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points.
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy that they squeaked that out. And then you look at the Dallas side of things where they have the top end talent, but I think they're also pretty similar in terms of like the rest of their lineup. Like, it's not filled with stars. Like, Wyatt Johnston is centering their second line, right? So I think the series will come down to like the top end talent. Personally, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I think, there's a couple guys on Seattle, like Oliver Bjorkstrand. I know he hasn't had a ton of experience in the playoffs, but,
he won them the game.
He won them the game. That's what I mean. That game. And then also he scored the series clinching goal when they beat Tampa and swept them in 2019. Really? Yeah, I was reading an article this morning and saw that. So he's a guy who can elevate his game in the playoffs. I think Eberle's a guy who can do that as well. But that's the whole thing, right? Like, Seattle's consistent attack of these 4 solid lines that they run, and then some of these guys on defense that are just playing super solid. And then
Larson has been really good.
Larson has been really good. It's a shame Edmonton never saw this Adam Larson legitimately ever. Yeah. And then Vince Dunn as well, along with some of the other guys back there. But yeah, I was really surprised with how the Kraken played. But looking at Dallas, the one thing I'm concerned with them is offense. I'll say with this right now, Grubauer is going to record a shutout in this series. In one of Dallas was dead last in high danger chances created. And sure, Minnesota, similar team to Dallas, like, they're super defensive, I would say. Yeah. Don't allow a ton of chances, but still, like, that's still, you're still last out of all teams right now going against a Seattle team that was top 5 in expected goals against all season long and was in the playoffs as well. So do you see maybe not that side? Do you see a lot of like unders like we saw in both of these kind of series against Dallas and Minnesota and Colorado and Seattle? Do you see more unders hitting in this series than overs?
I don't know. I'm kind of leaning more overs because I think that if Seattle tries to play Dallas's game, they will lose.
Yeah,
I think they're going to need to be more aggressive and need to really run at this Dallas team, because if they sit back and try to just play like the Wild did, they're not going to have success in the series. So I would look at overs a bit more in the series. Depending what they're at, I'd assume they'd probably be at around 5.5. just because of the Stars and their nature. But I'm also like, are you concerned about Grubauer maintaining this? Because his numbers in the playoffs compared to the regular season is a huge discrepancy. Probably the biggest among like all goaltenders in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, there were flashes when he came back from like that injury or whenever Martin Jones was playing pretty well, where he had some good games and some good stretches of hockey for sure. But that is a good point to bring up. I think it will, just because the attack from Colorado and Dallas is it's similar, but I don't think the volume will nearly be as much. Like McKinnon finishing with like 9-10 shots every night. Like there's no guy in Dallas that will do that. Maybe it's a little bit more spread out between Robertson and Roope Hintz, and obviously Roope has had a really good playoff so far. But looking at this series price, Stars -190, which I believe is the biggest out of from the first three series that are currently out right now. -1.5 plus 100. I don't think I'd take a stab at that.
No.
And then the Kraken +165, plus 1.5 is at -130. Would you look at a side here, or again, are you kind of going the same route of these playing like the series games instead? I think this one's actually probably better to bet.
I was just going to add in, if you guys watched the Leafs preview, I mentioned how with these prices in these series, like taking the Kraken +1.5 just simply isn't worth it, because you're better off just taking them to either win outright or to go to 7 games. I think the play is to just sprinkle both. And personally, I think that's what I'm going to be doing in this series, because I do anticipate it to be very close. I think most of these second round series should be really close. And honestly, you could see them all going 6-7 games. I don't see any sweeps coming. Feel free to clip this and come back to it when the Leafs get swept. But I think the best angle for me would be just sprinkle Kraken money or to win the series, and then also to go 7 games, you can get that at +210. I just think that's the best value. Audie, like you said, with those high danger save percentage, that scares me a little bit. And I think this could be a pretty crazy series. I think a lot of people might anticipate it to be slow, but it just depends on the Kraken game plan and if they can establish that. Because if they have those 4 lines running at them, it could be wide open.
Yeah, unders in that Colorado series were 6-1.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy, but it's like you mentioned, it's super reliant on the goaltenders. Grubauer's goals saved above expected was around 4. Oettinger's was 4.5. So despite both of them actually kind of struggling in terms of trying to like saving higher quality chances, it'll be really interesting to see how these totals play out. I'm gonna go probably with the Kraken +1.5 for Kraken money line, along with the game to play to
7 games,
7 games or 6 games here. I think that's just the best value you have here. This playoffs have been total anarchy. Like, I don't think the favorites at this point are necessarily always going to be the best bet. So that's definitely something you should note. All of these series prices as well, all at DraftKings. If you haven't signed up there, bet $5 on any team to win. You'll get $150 in bonus bets instantly. The last thing I will mention, the player props for this one. I looked at the player to lead for goals. And since I'm going to roll with Seattle, I'll take one of these guys on Seattle as well. I'm going to look at Jaden Schwartz at 12-1 and Oliver Bjorkstrand at 15-1. I talked about him. I got to give him his respect for how well he's played. Maybe the volume will be there in the series instead of him just scoring the series-winning goal. So, are you looking at any props just yet, or are you kind of
no?
waiting?
I'm just kind of wait. I don't think I'll be playing like a player total or most goals in the series, just because honestly, I don't really know what to expect. Like, I gave my thoughts on it, but I'm not really sure what to do with this. Like, the Stars very well could like sweep the Kraken, but I just think that the Kraken aren't getting enough respect yet. Still, even after putting out the Avalanche. I mean, the Avalanche they're not last year's team, but it's still a pretty impressive feat.
Yeah. I will say the NHL is just, they'd be drooling for a Vegas, Seattle Western Conference final just to show that the expansion teams works.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be kind of cool, but I wouldn't want to see any of those teams in this.
No, I want
finals,
Oilers.
So, yeah, Oilers would be great. Okay, that's it. That's it from here for the Stars versus Kraken series. You heard it here. The Kraken are upsetting. That's what we're saying pretty much. Or they're going to get swept. One of the two.
I know Chase is watching, so sorry.
Sorry, Chase. But yeah, be sure to lock in those bets on DraftKings if you haven't already. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.